when you're ready, Wally.
Is it there, Sharon? No, ma'am. Okay,
We're
that's
good.
it.
We're good.
You good? All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Rankin Planning and Zoning Board, if I could call for a roll call, please.
All right, Mr. Jim Head,
I'm here.
Tom Wilson,
Here.
Lady Mattingly's here, Kelly Durham,
Here.
Eric Hills,
Here.
Mona Underwood, here, Roy Griffin, Terry Lewis,
Here.
Lolly Watley,
Here.
Sherry Swagger.
Here.
All right. If I could ask everybody to stand for the invocation and pledge. Anybody willing to do an invocation today? All right, I'll do that myself. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for the blessings that you've given us. We thank you that for this country that we are in. We ask you to look after us today to make the right decisions for the city of Rankin if it's in your will. We also ask you to continue to look after the other leaders of this country, particularly our president, who has a difficult job these days, and also, of course, for our military, both that are stationed here and abroad. We ask this in the name of the Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, first item, as usual, is approval of the agenda for today. City have any changes or additions? Everything good over there? Anybody on the board have anything that we might need to change? If so, then I'll ask for a motion.
I move we accept the agenda as written.
Motion is on the table for accepting as written and seconded.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All righty. Next item on the agenda would be the approval of the minutes for June the 13th, 2023. And it looks like everybody has their package. So I'm sure everybody had a chance to kind of look over that. Do we see any additions, changes, corrections? Everything look okay?
Good to me.
Any comments? All right, then I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion.
Motion on the table for approval
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. All right, you ready, Betty?
Yes.
Ready, Betty? All right. First, I just came out that way.
Do that quite often.
First item of new business is item number 1 on the agenda. An application has been filed by Marhoff Properties LLC requesting site plan approval to construct a 1-story commercial daycare with fenced-in playground. The property is located at 515 Town Park Loop. The parcel is owned by Marhoff Properties LLC and is zoned general commercial. Is there somebody here today that is representing them? And if you wouldn't mind, what we ask you to do is to just state your name for the record and tell me if I'm saying that right. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Marhoff Properties?
Marhoff?
Yes.
That's correct?
Yeah, my name is Brianna Durrance.
I'm sorry?
My name is Brianna Durrance.
And Brianna, would you mind just giving us an idea of what you're doing? I know we have paperwork here, but we always ask that.
Yeah.
Just give us a rundown of what we're looking at.
We are seeking site plan approval for a one-story child care center with a fenced-in playground. Will hold approximately about 120 students, infants to 4-year-olds. We are excited for this journey, and we hope to have the city of Freedom's support in going forward with this, and we hope to provide wonderful care for the children of Lincoln and the surrounding areas.
Okay. Couple of questions I had. Know where the property is located. It's right there behind that other building, I guess.
Yes.
You said it was gonna be fenced in,
The playground.
the playground area, yeah, of course, that totally makes sense. Probably it's required, I would imagine.
It is, yes.
And you guys are a licensed daycare facility at this time?
So we have to get the building built first, and then 30 days before the building is completed, we have to submit over for approval from the state.
Inspection.
We do, before we start building, we do have to get permission from the commissioners of the fire, gosh, I'm gonna butcher it, the fire commissioners.
Uh-huh.
So we do have to submit that now, so we are gonna move forward with that. Then we build the building, then like I said, 30 days before it's finished, then the city comes in and does inspections.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the state.
All right, something I don't see, this says, let me reread what I had there, application is this for preliminary or final site plan? It didn't say, didn't specify.
It's final site plan, so they're just coming one time, so what I'm doing now is just making sure before I bring it to y'all that they've met all of the requirements. So I've created a checklist that I go through, that's based on what's required in the code, and if they don't have if they don't have everything, then I've been working with them to get it submitted so that we can just take it through, for one meeting.
Okay, one thing I noticed that we usually have is a site plan, and unless I'm not a site plan, but a landscaping plan, which did I miss that?
I believe the landscaping plan,
Okay,
they did submit one. I apologize that it's not in here. They did submit one that meets all of the requirements.
yes, I may have just not got it in my package, or.
No,
could
no,
be
I'm
really
not
overlooked
sure.
it, But I've only got two,
No, I must have missed including it. I apologize for that. I will double check next time, but I can confirm that they did submit a landscape plan. It does meet the requirements of the code. So I think it actually, in the front portion along the street, along Town Park Loop, it actually exceeds what's required by the code.
okay, good to know,
And the medians are planted as well.
okay.
How many students do you anticipate?
Approximately 120.
And you know the number of the occupancy of a square foot building of that size?
So the state requires 35 square foot per child. So I
Okay.
have each room drawn out to fit how many kids will be in each room per teacher ratio.
Good, okay.
I know it's not a gigantic playground, but what do you, anticipate having the surface of the playground? Is it gonna be,
So I have two options that I'm considering, kind of do some kind of like turf, soft ground, or do, it's like, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like this rubber, compressed rubber, I think might be what it's called.
Uh-huh.
Something of that sort.
Okay.
The state requires you to have a fall zone within a certain distance of, certain height, so the distance of it depends on how high the playground goes. So I'll get with a state licensed playground, designer in order to do that.
right, so that's part of, if I'm not mistaken, when the state does their inspection, they'll be looking for
To make
the
sure that I
proper amount
have,
of
yes,
fall protection. from-
exactly.
Around certain pieces
Yes.
of equipment, play equipment and that
Yes.
kind of stuff, okay. The other thing I noticed, I show your drop-off, pattern, which certainly makes sense. I see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm guessing you could probably get 8 or 9 cars in the queue,
Mhm.
that'll be on your property. I mean, we've all dealt with daycares and around daycares. That usually occurs in the morning and in the afternoon, whenever you're either picking up or dropping off. That's when it gets kind of a little crazy, as far as traffic goes, because everybody's coming and going. To me, it looks like you probably have enough spaces or enough available spaces that you could queue a reasonable amount of cars.
Yes.
However, sometimes it will, I'm sure it will go off into the street. The only thing I can say about this particular location, I think it's not like on a main highway or anything, so that's helpful
Mhm.
when it comes to that. So I would say that would be a plus.
And I'll have staff members out there to get the children out of the vehicles, so that way it's a little smoother versus parents having to get out of the cars to do that, because that'll take more time.
Yeah.
So if I have staff members that are prepared to help get the kids out quickly, and the cars can flow a lot quicker.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
What's your experience with daycares?
I worked in them in my teenage years, but other than that, I've been reading the state paperwork as much as I can.
Well, that is a very good
It's
idea.
a packet this thick. So
Because
it's
that
fun.
does make a huge difference.
Yes.
Getting the kids in and out is always that's always the sticky part.
Yes.
Is this gonna be a
Figuratively and figuratively and non-figuratively.
Is this gonna be a daycare or daycare/learning center?
So as of right now, the plan is daycare. But so when we get closer to the building being complete, I will open it up, and I believe I'm gonna do some sort of like lottery,
I just know
and
usually if it's daycares, people park and take their kids in if it's.
not since
school.
COVID.
So
So
not
I
since
have been
COVID.
informed. I have not worked in a childcare center since COVID, but I've been informed by several other childcare centers in our area that parents do not want to come inside anymore. They want to drop their kids off on the road. Some centers don't even allow parents to come inside unless it's a scheduled visit. So that's a new thing for me too. My door will be open for parents to come in as needed, but that's why we also have parking spaces. So if they want to come in, they'll use parking spaces. But if they don't, then I'll give them that option too.
Mhm.
I'm a parent that would want to go
I'm a
inside.
grandparent, I like to inside.
Yes, I like to know what's going on. So,
What do you anticipate your hours of operation?
most likely 6:30 to 6,
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm.
You'll have to pass my iPad back, but I have the landscape plan pulled up
Oh, great.
so that y'all can take a look at it. They've got
Perusal of it.
35 trees planned. It looks like 30 flowering dogwoods and 5 double woods. So we can see them here and then the,
I'm just gonna take
The,
a quick glance and then pass it on.
okay. You can see they have it in the front and then in the medians.
Yep. We'll pass it this way and I'll send it back and we'll send it back this way. While we're doing that, I'll ask for the city's position on this.
Right, so I was able to meet with the applicants before and during the submittal so their application was pretty complete when they submitted it. They had a few small changes to make. They went ahead and did those pretty quickly. We found that it meets everything in the code and I've issued them a staff approval letter.
Okay. At this point, anybody from the public that would like to say anything about this particular project? For this item on the agenda? Nobody from the public? Okay. I don't see a lot of confused faces on the board or anything, so I'll ask any further questions from the board or first. Well, generally not confused, no more confused than normal, but.
We desperately
Please make
need
that clear.
daycares, not be confused.
I totally agree with you there, that daycare is sparse, so I'm sure you will be full.
I've already been getting calls and I'm nowhere near being complete.
Yeah, well, people, it's an issue, it definitely is an issue. I'm no longer in the daycare.
I have an issue myself, so.
Yeah, you know, yeah, it's and it is gonna be a continuing problem, especially since COVID is now.
Well, we're hoping that this one is successful, we can continue with multiple.
Good, cool, great. All right, anybody else, any other questions or comments? All right, if not, I'll call for a motion.
Make a motion that we accept.
Motion on the table for accepting as it
Second.
stands.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, it's unanimous.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You will still need to go through, city council. Remember, we're just recommending the body to city council, which is going to be, and I should write this down when you tell me, Terry,
August 14th.
August 14th. August 14th, all right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. All right. Moving on, next item on the agenda is a petition has been filed by Belinda Hunt requesting a variance to reduce the minimum width of each lot from 100 linear feet to 90 linear feet. The property is located at 706 7th Street Extension and is zoned R4, single-family residential. Parcel number is R2140032C00. Anybody from this item on the agenda?
I just went to check to make sure nobody was just waiting outside, the applicant's not here.
Okay.
I know she or a representative were planning to attend, but I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, well, we can attempt to go through the process and see where we stand. Since there's nobody here to actually represent them, if you just give us a quick rundown. I mean, I did want to ask this. I mean, it looks like, or I can do that as well. It looks like they've got the single piece of, it's two pieces of property at this point? Or they're going to
It's a
subdivide?
single piece of property. She inquired about subdividing it, but because it is such a long, narrow piece, it already doesn't meet the requirements. So the existing house on there is non-conforming. It requires 100 feet width.
Right.
Because it's in the R4 zoning district and it's only 90 feet wide.
Sir, you wouldn't happen to be
For the Belinda Hunt
representing
variance?
I am, yes.
Okay.
a variance for Belinda Hunt?
I am, yes, sir.
If you wouldn't mind, we're at that point right now. Would you mind coming up to the podium and just give us an idea of what we're looking to do?
I am the
And your name too, if you don't mind.
Joseph Rowe, R-O-W-E.
Okay,
I'm the owner of Rowe Construction, and I'm gonna be building, hopefully, the house for them on that property.
okay,
They've got 706 West 7th Street right now that we're remodeling, which backs up to, was it Jadon, I think?
you Don, yes.
And they're wanting the variance. I'm not real familiar with what's going on, other than she wanted me to step in and stand in her place for her today, because she's out of Montana.
Okay, great.
But I do know they're wanting to separate that property so they can build a roughly 2,000 square foot house on the property, on the new lot.
Okay. So I guess I'm a little confused. So right now it's still one piece of property?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, so,
So she's not submitted a subdivision application yet, because when she called, I told her she would have to go through the variance process first. Because while that one house is existing, the other house is not, and so in order to subdivide, she has to be able to meet the requirements or get a variance from the requirements that she
Sure.
can't meet.
okay, so that's why we're doing the variance first, and then she will
Yes.
come back and subdivide the property if we grant the variance?
Yes.
I gotcha, okay. And so the new piece of the new building, new structure that
Yes,
you're
sir.
looking to build is gonna face Jadon, or is it,
Jadon, yes.
it's gonna face that, so that'll be the front of the house?
That's correct.
And they'll pull out, I would assume, from, onto Jadon Street?
Yes, and there's already like a driveway there. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if it was a house in the past, I'm not sure.
You'll utilize pretty much what's there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The lot's already cleared, it's
Yeah, it
ready.
seems like it's pretty wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The normal requirements are 100 feet by 120, I think it is.
I think that's correct. It's
Is it
definitely
one?
100 feet in width. Let me pull mine.
Pretty sure it was 120. I don't have it right off the bat, I'm just going by memory. I think the minimum lot is, or the minimum size.
Existing lot is 92 feet.
Me-
Maybe.
It looks like it measured on a, that's measured on a bag, so.
So yes, 100 by 120.
100 by 120 is the minimum. So, so yeah, that 92 that you see on the map
Mhm.
is kind of at an angle.
Oh, I was reading her request.
Yeah, well, it does say for 90, but I'm saying that if you draw a line perpendicularly, it's probably closer to 90 feet. So I think that's where they come up with the 90 feet. Setbacks are what, 15, 15? There we go. Yeah, 15 and 15 for setbacks, I believe. Those don't need to change for any reason, for the
No, sir.
structure that you're building?
No, sir.
You don't see any reason, any other reason for possible variances with the kind of, has she given you an idea what she wants to build?
We don't have the plans yet, but I mean, we can, purchase a plan that'll fit that property easily. with
Right,
that-
okay.
With those setbacks, that shouldn't be a problem,
Yeah, okay.
because the property is so deep.
Yeah.
You have, sorry, go ahead.
It's on the staff report, says it can meet all other standards other than the nine.
Yeah. Will you be, I'm curious, will you be using a regular setback, which probably is 35 feet? Or do you think it's gonna be
Off of the
further
road?
back?
From the road,
Yes, from the road.
yeah, I mean, we can do whatever the standard is or
Well,
whatever.
I was just curious,
No,
well, maybe you haven't made that decision yet,
We
if they
haven't.
plan on doing it further back, or they're just gonna stick to the 35 feet,
More than likely the 35 feet.
more than likely 35.
We're trying to stay in line with the other houses there.
Right, okay.
I didn't realize you guys were already started. I thought I was supposed to be here at 7, so I'm sorry.
No, that's all right, that's all right, we had just
You
started.
timed it just right.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, she stuck her head out in the lobby just to make sure we weren't missing anybody, and just about time we got started, you walked in, so I'm glad I
That's
asked,
good,
because
that's
otherwise
good.
we might have went on. Other questions from the board?
So when we do a variance, do you put more than a variance for hardship, correct?
That's one of the main ones, yes. Some of the other reasons would be, unbuildable. In other words, if a lot is oddly shaped, or there's maybe wetlands or something that come into play, or something like that, that would prevent it from reasonably, building something reasonable on that property. That would be another reason, but hardship is one. They don't have any that you know of, any other hardships other than the fact, well, other than the,
Just the 90-foot variance is all I know. Everything
Yeah.
else is buildable, if that's what you're asking.
okay.
There's no issues that will prevent us from being able to build on it.
Mhm. Okay.
It's a very narrow, long lot. And
Very long.
There's a lot of property, even when it's divided, it'll be fairly large. Both,
Terry, is the hardship in the fact that they bought the lot and it's already just 90 feet, and now they want to subdivide it, and there was never that much footage? I mean, what would you consider the hardship?
Well, for what I consider the hardship, I generally look at how the property looks, and I compare it to other properties in the area. So if all of them were equally long and narrow, then I would have said no hardship, because they're all the same. Like, then we really need to look at, do we want to change the code? Do we need to do something different? In this case, when you look at it, there are a couple other properties that are long, but they're not nearly as narrow as this one. Certainly, and if this was a really tiny lot, if it was a half-acre lot or something like that, where it really didn't lend itself to having any more homes on it, but it really does. I mean, you walk down, like, I was able to park at the house and easily walk back to Jadon Street. Back there are many in this area. If you look along there are several parcels that have two houses, kind of one at the front and one at the rear. So, but generally I look at whether there are natural resource type issues, or the size of the property and then compare it to others, so.
I can't read that clearly. On the right side, as we're looking at this page,
Okay.
okay? On the right side, is that an easement running down? Is that utility? What? The dotted line
It
on the
says,
right, you've got a 10-foot and a 10-foot.
I think it says easement.
It looks like it says easement to me. I just wanna make, it says easement at the bottom for sure.
Right.
It says 20-foot easement, I'm assuming it's a utility?
That would be my guess as well.
It says city, I think it's a city ditch. Oh, city ditch, so it's drainage easement along there.
Right, it's
Is
not
what
an
it-
access easement, so.
I'm sorry?
I said it's not an
Access
access
easement.
easement, so.
Right, not access, no problem. No, I was trying to find out what it was, I mean, if it is a drainage easement, I mean, to me, that also would make it easy, because the easement's already in place. If there was a, you know, a drainage issue on the property, you know, that's easy to drain to that easement and then run the water to the front or the back, whichever makes sense. But I'm saying, so drainage easements are already in place. But I did go by and look at it, it's a pretty flat lot.
Yes,
Would you agree?
I would agree.
I mean, I didn't get out and walk it. You probably walked it?
It's very flat.
Fairly flat? You don't see any problems with drainage
No, sir.
after construction?
I don't see any problems there.
The fact that it's a large lot also helps with drainage, you know, you've got a lot of area to sheet water off to, so. Anybody from the public that would like to make any comments about this item on the agenda, item number 2? Okay, and the city's position? I think we kinda got that, but go ahead and if you remind me.
Right, recommending approval based on the fact that the lot is long and narrow.
Got it. The other thing I was gonna ask too, I mean, I kinda know the answer to the question, but obviously it meets the square footage for the lot.
Yes.
So we don't have to worry about, as you were saying, if it was a small lot and they built a 2,000 square foot house, that could have, if it was a small lot, would run into problems with, you know, utilizing too much of the square footage of the lot, but that, around a 2,000 square foot house doesn't seem to be a problem.
And they would have to come back with site plans, correct?
I'm sorry?
If they build, they would have to come back with
Not for residential.
not for residential.
No, not for residential. I mean, they would still have to go for we would get it would come to us when they break the subdivision up, right? Does that still come to us? Is that considered a minor subdivision? Terry, would we have to see that? I don't know that we would.
I don't think they do if it's 2 or a lot less. I'll have to check. I haven't had
Yeah.
any of those yet since I've been here, so.
Right, I
don't
think,
know.
and again, we'll go, of course, she'll look into it, but I think if it's a minor like this one, where you're just breaking it into 2, we may not see it again, so we may not ever see it again. If it was 3 or more, I believe it is, it would come by us again as a subdivision. So we may probably not see it again, I'm guessing, best I can remember.
Would we see it again because the other lot would have to ask for a variance as well?
It's
Or would
already
this
existing, so.
This variance would cover both?
Right, would cover, yes.
Both lots, even if it's subdivided?
Yes.
Okay.
It is kind of a tiny house on the front, too.
Yes.
Yes. You said you're renovating that one now?
We're remodeling, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? Oh, somebody from the public. Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind stepping aside, if you'll give me your name, sir, and just come on up and you got about 3 minutes if you'd like, 3 or 4 minutes.
Yes, sir. How y'all doing this afternoon?
Good.
I was wondering, y'all talking about the lot right next door to 702 West 7th Street?
702 West 7th Street.
It's 706.
This is,
Yes.
706, yes. What is
Okay.
your name, sir?
Abraham Mydell.
Abraham Mydell.
I stay next door.
Okay, so you live next door?
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
wasn't aware of this. I didn't get no letter in the mail whatsoever. So we don't give out letters no more?
Well, normally, when, we have a variance, for something like this, does it go up for everybody within 300
It
yards?
does, but it goes out, before 30 days before the council meeting.
Before the public hearing.
So it goes up 30 days before the public hearing, so you'll get one to you're obviously welcome to come here and speak tonight, but you'll
Yes.
definitely get a letter letting you know about the public hearing that is August 14th at 7 PM, right here, but you'll get a letter stating that.
Okay.
So, right
But-
now, we send it, the requirement is that we send it for the public hearing, so.
Okay.
And they do, and it is posted, I did see they do have a sign in the front yard which is posted. But you're
But it has
more
an
than
address.
willing to hear what you have to say today, whether you are for this or against it, or any comments you have.
Well, it could work and then again it can't. So are we gonna fix the fence that's been down for the longest, that was next door?
Don't know about that, this one doesn't really apply to that.
Okay.
I mean. the
And then it has another address on it, on the sign. So it don't have the right address on it. It has a sign, it has the address for a house across town.
So you're saying the address that's posted on the property now is not the correct address? What is the address on there?
Are you saying the address on the
Yeah,
house or the
7th
address
Street,
on the
7th
sign?
Street, yeah, on the sign. It's a 7th Street extension. So West 7th Street is an extension now?
I'm a little confused. So you're saying that the address that's posted on the property is not 706?
Yeah, it says 706, but it's an extension. So is West 7th Street an extension?
That's what, not only was that the address that was on her application, but in our mapping system, which comes from the county, it listed as 706 7th Street Extension.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. I was just wondering.
No, absolutely, we appreciate you coming in
Yeah,
again.
anytime
You
you
should be
have,
getting,
you know, we
a
don't,
letter.
a lot of times we don't get people from the public, so we appreciate it that you come by to, you know, to voice your opinion. That's why we're here. And it's our job as this group to try to, you know, sort out any differences or anything like that before it gets to city council, so that they have a, you know, they have a better idea of what's going on. And again, you're certainly welcome to go to the city council meeting if you have any, you know, additions to what you want to mention to
But
it.
if there's problems with fences or anything like that, you can call them, it's on the plan, and they'll get David out to check on things for you.
Okay.
Right, we're here not necessarily, but we're not dealing with the fence itself. We're looking at a variance to, if they subdivide this property, normally, and I noticed you came in just a little bit later, so I'm just gonna quick recap. Normally, a property would need to be 100 feet wide in order to put a home on this site. This property is not that, even though there's a
Yeah,
house
correct.
there that's already there. And, we would, look at something like that and say, okay, is it make sense to allow it to be slightly smaller width-wise based on other things around the property, which mean the size of the property and so forth.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at today.
All right.
All right?
All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Mydell.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? All right, anybody, or any other comments from the board? All right, if somebody feels like we're ready for a motion, I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that we accept it for the variance.
Motion to accept the variance as written. And
I second.
And seconded, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so that will still go to city council, as we were just mentioning, on August the 14th.
Okay.
All right, and
Sure.
that's done right here in this same room.
Okay.
All right,
Sounds good.
thank you. All right. Item number 3 is a petition. We're moving forward, everybody ready? No, okay. Petition has been filed by Jacqueline Baton, is that correct?
B2,
Sorry?
B2, yes, sir.
Beaton, requesting a variance to construct a fence within the front setback area. The property is located at 505 East William Street. Property is owned by Jacqueline Beacon.
Yep.
And is zoned R4, single-family residence, parcel numbers R21000043, and you are Jacqueline?
I am.
Okay, great. If you could kind of give us a rundown.
I've lived there for 20 years. I own the property, and I have a circle driveway, and I know it's inviting, but every dog in the neighborhood comes to greet me, and I'm the only one in the neighborhood petrified of dogs. So I'd like to simply just close off my fence, because it's an acre, or a little under an acre, and the fence is on 3/4 or 3 sides already. So I just simply just wanted to close off the front. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know I needed a permit, so I put the post in there myself, thinking it's no big deal, just keep the dogs out. At which time I was told, no.
Who brought that to your attention? City?
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, Mr. David.
Okay, no problem.
So, I would have liked to have it finished a month ago, because it's way too hot to work on it now. So I'm not gonna work on it for quite some time now, but, if everything is cleared, it'll be all done by next spring.
Well, I read through your comments.
Mhm.
Well, actually, is this one comment, or one letter, I should say, I have from Peter? Is that right?
I don't,
Read them.
I have 2 handwritten letters.
Yeah, read them more.
I'm sorry, it's Rita?
They're both,
That one's
okay.
oh.
Oh, yes, one is from Rita Lawrence.
And she, so I got 2 letters, both of them stating similar concerns, dogs in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And of course, I've got yours as well. From Jackie, yes, Jackie Baton.
And because the dogs just roam all in my yard, my dog's getting to the point where he doesn't know his limit. So he just wants to go out, so I'm like, no, I wanna contain him and keep them out. And people too, I have people walking in my yard oddly, at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, why?
Tell me a little bit about the neighborhood. I mean, from what it sounds like, you're saying that there's some other issues in the neighborhood other than the dogs, and what, if anything, has been done to try to take care of the dog situation?
I don't know if anything's been done about the
Have
dogs.
you had the opportunity to call, the Humane Society or anybody to collect the dogs, or?
Numerous times. And
Sorry?
Numerous times, and they're still running the street.
So you?
I've actually gotten in trouble for my dog being out on the street,
Mhm.
so I know, so I just,
Yeah, what's this about $1,500 penalty of approximately $1,500? Can you?
that's when I got in trouble for my dog. The Chihuahua came onto my property, and I'm sorry, Chihuahua in the lab fight is not fair. I have a lab,
Right,
so that's why I was
I was
fined
charged with penalty
$1,500.
because there was a dog on your property
Mhm.
doing his business, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And then my dog was like, no, you're not, and then went out and greeted him. And it really came down to, a peeing war.
Mhm.
The Chihuahua peed on my lab ankle, and the lab turned around and peed on it, and then they just started fighting, so,
Okay.
and it wasn't pretty.
How long ago was that?
Probably 10, 15 years ago,
Been a while.
yeah.
So people walk up on your property and use your power on the carport?
They did, yes, we've cleared that out because, the house has been sold and foreclosed, and, yeah.
So these folks assume that it was not,
They also tapped into my Wi-Fi and all kinds of other stuff, but that's been cleared out, so I'm
Okay.
not addressing that issue.
well, I have a question for the city too, Terry. We have the next item on the agenda about a moratorium on fences. How does this apply? Or how does that apply to this? Where do we stand on that?
So I'm not entirely sure. I can tell you that that's something that Raymond, the city attorney, is looking into. When we brought the moratorium forward to city council, at that point, we had the fence variance already. So
that was already, okay.
right, so he's looking into whether or not that would grandfather this one or not, or whether it would have to meet the requirements after the moratorium is lifted and the new fence regulations are adopted. He's doing research on that.
Okay, so we don't really need to concern ourselves with that. He'll make that decision.
He will make that decision, yes. That was one of the comments that came up at council, because I knew that we had this variance application in play. They want to know how many either applications or anything to do with fences that we had at the time that we brought the moratorium request forward.
And was it just this one, or is there others?
I think this is the only one that we had ahead of time. Since then, we've received 3 fence applications, and we're holding those right now, and the applicants are aware that they're being held until the moratorium is lifted.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, it sounds like, again, as you heard from the last one, we're recommending body the city council, but whatever we recommend, or if it's recommended as okay or approved, it would still have to go to city council, and then they will have to make the decision whether you're allowed to build a fence or not, based on that moratorium. So that's what we're talking about there. So this board doesn't need to address that part. We're just gonna assume that they'll figure that part out. We're looking at just your fence. And normally, the code does call that you don't have fences past basically the front face of your house, which would be the front setback. Most houses are built on the front setback line, which would mean the front corners of your house would be where the closest or the furthest forward you should be able to put that fence. And I did drive by to take a look at it, and I see by the photos and so forth, I'm guessing, I don't know where you are exactly on the property. Is she on the property line, or where is that, the posts?
No, she's within that setback area, which is why the variance is being requested.
Right, but do we know the distance where the posts are set now that she has in place? Are they on the property line, or do we know where the property line is compared to where those posts are?
I don't know that I could say that they're on the property line. They're probably not very far off of it, given that they tie into the other, the fences on the side of the property.
Yeah, okay.
Am I mistaken, or is there not some other properties on William Street that have
Yes, ma'am.
chain link fence?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, there's a couple chain links I noticed. I saw about 5. And it was a mixture of chain link. Some of it is very short picket fences, some are a little bit taller fences, some guy just has a gate.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't know when those were put in.
Been there a while.
Yeah, they look like, I don't think any of them don't appear, and look, I'm just guessing, but they don't appear like they were put in within the last year or 2. They don't look brand new. I couldn't say for sure. I'm just telling you when I drove down the street, I noticed. And there's another chain link fence as you turn the corner on.
There's one on 4th Street that's 8 foot high.
It's wooden.
Yeah, but that one is, I think, on the side property.
No, it's in the front too.
On 4th Street?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's not within code either, but again, we don't know about those. But yes, the answer is yes, I saw some.
Yeah.
And the one at the end of the street, Williams and I want to say Ron, is wooden, and then right in front of it by 4 inches is chain link.
Mhm.
And I would say the number's more than 5. I would say the number's more in that neighborhood.
Well, in that neighborhood, yeah.
25% probably.
Yeah.
Well, I did drive through the neighborhood and I saw 5 of them on William Street itself. And then as I turned the corner, I don't remember the name of that street, not Ron Street, the other end. What's that street?
Warren, there's Ron, Warren, and then Tyler. That's the only 3 streets that leads to
Tyler, I think
east.
it's Tyler. I came in off of 4th Street, turned onto, I think it's Tyler, and then
Tyler.
turned right onto Ron, and you're just a few houses down on the
No,
right.
turn right onto Williams.
I'm sorry, into Williams, rather.
Yes,
Yeah,
on the
and
right,
then- yeah.
second one on the right,
So
yes.
there's one as I turned off of 4th Street, so that would be, and that one's got a chain link out front.
And then
Which-
wooden in the back.
I'm sorry?
And wooden in the back.
Wooden in the back,
Wooden in the
yeah.
back.
Yeah. As you know, we're in the middle of trying to change our ordinances on fencing.
So I just came too early or too late?
Came in the middle of it.
Okay, so you're gonna just wait and,
But that doesn't necessarily apply to what you're looking at here.
okay.
that, some of the changes that we're looking at are the types of fences, how tall the fences are, you know, what the fences are made out of. So I guess some of it does apply to you.
I can answer all those
But the
questions.
variance that we're looking at here is the location of the fence, you're not looking for a variance for the type of fence. You're looking for a variance of the location of the fence, which doesn't, at where you've got those posts, doesn't meet that criteria at all, as far as the code goes, and that's why you're here for a variance, asking for that.
Yes, sir.
Anything from the board?
So what would they have to do to get those poles back into?
Well, if the variance was not issued at all, she would have to have the fence, the furthest she could have the fence out would be the front corners of her property, most likely. Again, I don't know the exact setback, but most likely the front face of her house is the front setback, and that's where it would go, to meet code, which would not require a variance if they did that.
What did we do with the fence on Ninth Street with that variance?
I don't know which fence you're talking
Is
about.
he-
Oh, the one that,
Salvador's?
yeah, that was moved back, you
Right,
said?
it was moved back out of the setback,
Out of the setback, yeah.
so.
But it's still in front of the house.
But
But it meets the requirements of the code,
Yeah.
so the way the code is written, it can be there, it just can't be in the setback, so. Typically, you wouldn't have something like that because a lot of people build their house right at the setback. In this case, his is further back than that, so.
I just wanna make sure we're being consistent.
Mhm.
Right.
Allow, don't allow.
Yeah, and I know, you know, and again, we look at every variance on its own, but I get the consistency as well. But I know a lot of the concern with his as well was both the height and, the fact that it was, you couldn't see through it, so that was a concern for a lot of people as well.
We're talking about another fence
Okay.
recently that came up that, similar to your similar, not exactly, but similar, that he had already put in the fence or started, I think it was mostly finished. And he ended up having to remove the fence and move it back to the setback, in that case. Or that's what he ended up doing. I think he agreed to do that and,
Right, he withdrew the variance and moved it back.
right. Comments from, let me ask a comment from the, or the position from the city on it.
So, staff is recommending approval. It's a little bit, unique in terms of the physical circumstances. It's a, standard shaped lot, but I know that the safety concern, is, you know, is one that I think could be utilized, especially with documentation as was provided by the applicant, in this case.
Okay. Anybody from the public that would like to, you're the rest of the public, anything you'd like to add to this particular item on the agenda? No? Okay.
Sure. You just want a fence
I just want,
in your
that's my,
front yard?
yes, I
Is
just
that
want
what
to
you're saying?
to keep dogs and people out.
And for your personal safety.
That's it. Yeah,
Is this chain link?
yep,
Is there gonna be a gate?
yep. 2 6-foot on this side and 2 6 on the other side.
Pretty wide lot.
Yeah.
You got what, probably 150
Circular drive.
feet or more, probably
And the circular
160.
drive, yeah,
How much?
and the circular drive, I'm not sure of the footage.
Yeah.
I should know, cause I just bought it.
That's all right, you don't.
I don't know.
Is this the
I
old
appreciate
Moss
your
property?
narrative, by the way, thank you for that.
I'm
Is
sorry.
this all the old, is this the old Moss property?
No, they're my neighbors, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm saying that's how, I'm saying that's how I give direction, go to the pretty house, and I'm their neighbor.
I've been here, what's the old saying, since Noah had short pants?
I live next to Noah.
Well, here's my thought, I mean, anybody else from the board, I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in if you guys don't have
I'm saying
anything
she
else
wants
to add.
she just wants the.
I just want fence, I just want protection.
I'm sorry?
What the big deal is about fences.
Thank you.
Well, the big deal is it doesn't meet code.
It's the palace.
Right, and that's what I'm
And-
saying.
And
It's the
even though,
pallet fence.
and that's my comment, even though it does, even though there are
I
other
just got
fences
that.
on the street that don't meet code as well, just because that's there, just because somebody does something that doesn't meet code and you got away with it, that's not a reason for us, I feel like it's not a reason for us to say, well, it's okay, so everybody will do that. The whole reason for having the code is that we're trying to avoid this from happening. And yes, sometimes we miss stuff, or sometimes it hasn't been enforced, but of course, we wanna, move forward in a good way and not just, make the same mistakes we've made before. Because of that, I'm not so much in favor of granting the variance. However, because of the circumstances, I was gonna ask you, I know you're bringing it all the way out to the front. Would it not be, not serve your same purposes of safety to have it not all the way to the front and have it only a portion of the way?
I just thought aesthetically that it would look better because it met all the other fences. That's my one reason there. Just because it was keeping in, I guess, in code or in what everything else looks like.
Well, it is in line with a bunch of stuff that's not in line, or not meeting code, so.
Well, and I think
So
that
that's why I'm
part
a
of
little
the
torn
issues, part of the issues we run into with fences and part of the bigger picture of what we're responsible to do as a city is protect the value of property owners.
Mhm.
And the code for fences that we have now was very vague, which didn't allow that, and people are putting up fences that are damaging property values to people. So that was why this has to be revisited. I don't see where this would damage property values at all. And-
Well, I disagree, and I think some other people might disagree too. I think that's part of the reason, like you said, why code is we haven't set back. I think I just think it does damage property values. That's the way I see it. And I also think, I'm a little concerned that, we're here to, take care of issues that have to do with code. To me, this looks more like an issue that the police should be dealing with. Seems like, nothing against you, ma'am, I understand your situation, but it seems like we're trying to do the job of the police or somebody else that hasn't taken care of some safety issues that are in the neighborhood, meaning the dog issue. If this is a continuing problem, I don't think that it's necessarily our place to grant variances in order to handle a problem that should be being handled somewhere else. So, that's just my thought on it. However, I'm very sympathetic to your plight, and I'm not sure the best solution. But I personally am not for putting the fence where it is. That's just my 2 cents.
I think we ought to have a motion, and
Okay.
then we can see how it turns out, because I am for having her put the fence up. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, if there's no other comments, then certainly I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the variance as it's written.
Are there any other comments before we go to that motion? No? Okay, so the variance is on the table for approval as,
Noted in the
as the variance is stated.
And I second.
And seconded, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That's me. So, you also opposed. Okay, so 2 of us opposed. However, the majority says, we recommend approval, so it will go to city council as approved, or as we recommend an approval. And again, just as we said, the last 2 folks, last 2 issues that came up, you still need to meet with city council at or on August 14th, right here in this room,
Okay.
and they'll make a decision on that.
And what do I need to do to, not have 2 nays?
I'm
At
sorry?
that meeting? Do I need to do anything?
That
No.
doesn't impact.
No, that is, yeah, our board is officially down as marking as approved. Our recommendation is approval to city council, and city council, of course, makes the final ruling on that.
Okay.
At this point, you're in good shape.
Thank you. So don't
But
move
you do
any
have to go
forward,
to
don't do
city council,
anything,
or
just
city
wait.
council at August 14th.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
All right, not last, but 4th item on the agenda is a petition has been filed by CTC, Phase 1 owner LP, requesting site plan approval for Phase 1 of Coastal Trade Center warehousing houses, which includes the roadway and buildings 3, 4, and 5. The property is located at Highway 21. The parcel is owned by CTC Phase 1 owner, LP, and is zoned limited industrial. Parcel number is R2830001. And again, we know you, you've been here before, but if you wouldn't mind, give us your name for the record.
Good evening. Chad Zittrower with Kern & Company. Also with me tonight is Stephanie Harris with Tremble Crow and CTC Phase 1 owner LP. I think all of you are familiar with this property. I've been here before you on this property, going back probably 3 years for zoning applications, annexations, development agreements, preliminary site plans, final site plans on some adjacent properties. But here before you tonight are 3 buildings and a roadway, which is the final site plan application. This is property that is owned by CTC Phase 1. The preliminary site plan was approved, I believe, in September of October. It had 6 buildings on it. This is for 3 of those 6 buildings. To the best of my knowledge, everything is in compliance with the development agreement conditions. There are no variance requests. And other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. So if you got anything you want to add?
Sorry?
It's a rather large building.
Yeah. Has anything changed from the preliminary? as
Very
opposed to-
similar, maybe a few adjustments here and there, but the square footage is similar, parking counts are similar, truck courts are similar, access drives are similar. So
Okay.
just minor engineering design tweaks.
Trammell Crow, is that a new name?
So the property was sold to Tremble Crow, these 6 buildings. And so Greenland is not constructing this particular building, contrary to the Gerton building that they are constructing. So we followed all the procedures for the assignment of development agreement, nothing's changing there. All of those commitments, buffers, everything was agreed to there, has been met.
So the development agreement transfers to?
Only a portion of it. So in the development agreement, you had the donation of property, you had reservation, you had the fire station site, and then you had like reservation of water and sewer capacity. So what happened was Greenland maintained all of the donation obligations. They did assign a portion of the water and sewer capacity, but the attorneys sorted all of that out to where they felt everything was fair there, but
City's building water.
yeah, it will come.
Yes. Yes, the development agreement's been signed by both parties, and my understanding are exactly what, Chuck said.
So can I assume the city's recommendation is for approval?
The city's recommendation is for approval, so they have met, the requirements they were required to meet. I think as you saw, I didn't do a checklist for this one just because there are 3 separate buildings and the roadway as well, but yes, they've met all of the requirements.
Okay. Anybody from the public, even though we have no public, I always want to make sure that I mention it. Nobody hiding in the back there, behind the door. This is their opportunity, if they're behind the door, to give their 2 cents. No? Okay.
So I'm looking for the roadway. That's just into the cul-de-sac?
Yes, it currently is the cul-de-sac, correct.
Okay. Big enough for semi truck?
Yes, ma'am.
Any plans in the future to have it go further?
This roadway probably, more than likely not. Now, part of the development agreement talks about, well, this could extend a little bit, but it's not going to go past the railroad tracks.
Okay.
So there
So it's just gonna be
was a
one way.
right-of-way dedication south of the railroad tracks. where that could potentially be a connector road. But this may go a little further, but it will not go past the railroad tracks.
So no east-west corridor yet, huh?
Not on this road.
We can only hope. McCall Road needs more traffic.
Do you think DOT is gonna put a stoplight at this?
So we have, our traffic study indicates that our trip counts will warrant a signal at this location. However, because there's no intersection there, they're not gonna let us just go put up a signal before we open our first building with generating zero traffic.
Oh, absolutely.
So we've got a study that indicates, yes, it will, but we can't tell you when they're gonna say, okay, you can go put it in. We've got to meet their warrant requirements.
I'm assuming most of the traffic in this particular facility is gonna be coming north to your facility and leaving to go south.
Correct.
Is that
That's correct.
a good assumption?
And to clarify your question, no, DOT is not going to put a signal in. We're going to put a signal in at our expense.
You're gonna have to pay for it, yeah, gotcha.
Well,
But if you can find somebody that'll assist with it, that'd be great. But no, we understand that's our obligation, and when the warrants are met, we will complete that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking where these buildings are in conjunction with the railroad tracks, specifically those south of the building Courts Road.
These are north of Polly Creek. These buildings are north of
So
Polly
they're
Creek.
away from the building.
Correct, yes.
And then what about the track behind it that runs parallel to the
So there's 6 buildings going back there. These are buildings 2, 3, and 4, basically from 21. So there's 2 buildings back behind it. So the third building's about 2/3 of the way back.
You think you'll use those tracks at any point for?
We will more than likely not use the Norfolk Southern tracks. There would be potential for the connector track, the Georgia Power track that runs in between the two. But I would say it's very unlikely for these buildings to utilize that track, but some other buildings in the park could.
And I'm more worried about, because I know I just know what happens on Old Augusta, as quiet as that is when trains are trying to change out and get in and out of Fort Howard, and they're not even going to Georgia Power anymore. I mean, they can have traffic back up 30, 40 minutes changing tracks when they're that close to an intersection. So I just kind of mentally need to watch that, to ask the question. So when I get yelled at in Kroger, I have an answer.
what's the construction, board and till laws, board and till laws, and standards, stuff that we see.
Any other input? All right, I'll call for a motion then.
I move that we accept this.
Motion on the table for accepting,
Second.
and seconded, all in favor? Anybody opposed?
Me.
You're opposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. All right, back to fences.
Yeah.
So,
We've been dying to talk about this.
so yeah, last item on the agenda is review the proposed changes on fences, which Ms. Perry will inform us about.
Yes, so, as you probably know, we've had a lot of, concerns recently about fences. It started with just kind of people not realizing that they needed permits, so we've stopped quite a few people in the, kind of in the midst of buildings, sometimes when they're completed. And in doing that, I've become very familiar with our fence regulations, and there isn't a lot of information in them. So they're very limited in terms of what is, what the rules are. So, I mean, it's just a short little paragraph. They haven't been updated since 2010, so it seemed like the right time to go ahead and update that fence language. So we requested, because we are seeing so many fences recently and we knew we wanted to make some changes, we did ask council to pass a moratorium on fences with the idea that we would move this language forward pretty quickly so that we're not hurting anybody in the public any longer than we have to. And like I said, I've received 3 fence applications since the moratorium was enacted. I've explained to everybody, I said, you can either take it back and bring it back once the moratorium is lifted, or I'm happy to hold on to it for you. We won't do anything with it until that moratorium is lifted. And they've all just had me hold on to it. So we're not doing anything with it right now. So what's being proposed? I looked at some different codes to try to see what made sense, as well as kind of listening to what some of the complaints were, and also looking at when you've gotten variances for fences, what have they been for? And primarily they've been for being located in the front setback. And in looking at a lot of different codes, it seems like a lot of communities will allow fences in the front setback as long as they're not taller than 4 feet and they have a certain amount of open voids. So that you're not, again, at 4 feet tall, you're not really gonna get a compound feel. But if you've got some openings like, pickets, I gave some examples here, space pickets, split rail, iron style. If you've got things like that, then again, it again keeps it from feeling more walled off, which you don't want in a neighborhood. So that's probably one of the biggest changes, is the idea that fences would be, fences no taller than 4 feet tall would be permitted in the front setback. Rear and side yard fencing no more than 7 feet in height. No barbed wire fences on residential property. This is one of those, D is one of those things you feel silly putting in, but if you don't, the first time you don't put it in, somebody's gonna turn, they're gonna make the nicer part of the fence face their backyard and the non-finished part face the street. So we're putting it in there. Just gives guidance on how the fence should be measured. Materials, very specific materials, with a little bit of flexibility so that as other materials is approved by the city manager. Because I'm sure, as y'all know, whenever you try to list everything that's approved, somebody will come up with something that's probably great, but you have to say no because it's not in the code. So, no wall or fence may be constructed of exposed concrete block, tires, roofing tin, junk, or other discarded materials. And then it gives some exemptions for retaining walls or flood control structures. The one thing that I will say is that I did receive, and I'll pass it out to you, I know you won't kind of go through it all now, but I had somebody from the Savannah Realtors Association, the government affairs director, reached out to me and just, he heard that we were making changes to our fence regulations and said they've got this going forward right now, which is a municipal definition of scrap materials for fences. I think it might be adopting this would be longer than our whole fence, the fence regulations, but it may make sense to have a definition about scrap materials in there. So, so it's something I think that we probably,
She got chicken wire up on those tablets now. My goodness.
So I think if there's concern that scrap material isn't adequately covered by what's proposed here, then it may make sense to, either have a scrap material definition or put some language here. I don't think we necessarily need something as in-depth as what they've provided here. But what we're looking for right now is a recommendation from Planning and Zoning Board, if you like it the way it is, if you've got anything that you want to change. The next step would be public hearing before council on the 14th, first and second readings in August and September.
So you say these formats, space picket, split rail, and iron style are acceptable or unacceptable? Acceptable?
Are they
Like
what?
more, is these are, right here, we have 70% style right here?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
these would be, it's to give people an example,
Okay.
like a visual of what that 75% open void would look like, so.
Under letter F, enter, and B, split face concrete masonry units, what is that?
Split face block is the best way I can think of to describe it.
Yeah, because it says CMU, which normally means concrete masonry unit, which is a cinder block. And then
That's
below
what-
that, it says no cinder blocks, or somewhere it says in here, no cinder block. So a CMU is that's why I was asking, what is a split face concrete masonry unit?
I took that from another code.
Okay.
I guess for me, I was thinking something more similar to, I was not thinking cinder block, so I can look at that and make sure that I have an example of what that.
That'd be good, yeah, and the reason I say that is just because it looks contradictory, because, again, I'm in construction, when somebody says a CMU, that's an 8-inch by 16-inch by 8-inch concrete block,
Right.
Cinder block.
Okay.
What most people would call a cinder block, but I don't know what a split-face concrete masonry unit, it might be a special kind of, maybe it's kind of one of those decorative, it's a decorative unit that is open, is what I was thinking it might be.
That's what I was
don't know what
thinking
that
too.
is.
I didn't look up what it was, but that's what I was thinking as well,
Yeah,
so.
well, I think maybe we need to just clarify those
Mhm.
two. between
Absolutely.
the cinder, CM, because, or take away the CMU, because CMU, I think, at least in my mind, CMU means cinder block,
Okay.
at least a lot of people,
Okay.
so, or if they can. And then the other thing I had, what is the, EIFS?
It's another type of stucco. It's I'm trying to think of the right word, manufactured maybe is a better way of putting it. It's a, less heavy version of stucco.
Okay.
And I know it's vague, but I'd rather that split face concrete masonry. I mean, could we not say approved split face concrete masonry? Because Lord knows, I can't imagine what people might come up with when you say concrete masonry.
Well, yeah, and I've seen concrete fences, but I've seen concrete fences that look like, rail fence, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, I mean, and I don't think we wanna, prohibit the use of a concrete rail fence.
Right.
Because it would look like, it'll certainly be a lot more sturdy than or probably last longer than a.
Let me see, I'll see if before council, I will find something that's more specific. Cause I hesitate to use approved because then it's approved by who and, what exactly does that look like? But if I can find something more specific,
Okay.
that way everybody knows what we're saying is okay.
The other thing I had a question about was, it says 5/8 inch thick material. I'm assuming that's dog ear boards or the boards.
Yes.
Most of what Lowe's sells is not that. They do sell a 5/8.
Okay.
And I'm not sure it's a bad idea, because no doubt the 5/8 does last longer. I think it's a great idea that you have, but if you go to Lowe's, you can get two different types. You can get, it's thinner than 5/8 of an inch, and of course it's less expensive, and that's why people use it.
Right.
And the panels that they use are also way thinner than 5/8 of an inch thick. They're closer to like just under a half inch.
Again, this was something I saw in a couple of different codes that I looked at. It's not something that I'm super familiar with. I mean, I'm open to suggestions.
Well,
I don't
that's
want
what
it to
I'm
be
doing.
something
I'm not
that's
trying to beat you
difficult.
up over it. I'm just
No,
saying
no,
that's
that's
something
fine.
that I think they may wanna,
Yeah.
we may wanna either specify or not specify. I do think it's a great idea where it says decay resistant wood. That would mean anybody that's gonna put something up, it has to be a pressure treated product.
So what
That
if we
would
remove
eliminate-
that
That
5/8? Yeah, what if we remove that, just have
That-
decay
that's what I'm
resistant wood?
thinking.
Okay.
Because
we're
I
not.
think the decay resistant would also eliminate pallets, okay?
Mhm.
That material is not under normal circumstances, it's not, you know, it's not pressure treated.
Okay.
So that would help us to say, you know, you can't use pieces of pallet that's been, but I kind of think that's.
Well, that makes it better anyway, because we're not gonna be out there measuring somebody, the width of somebody's
Yeah,
fence,
and I think
so-
it'll really tick some people off if we go, hey, it's supposed to be 5/8 and you're a 1/16 of an inch short.
Right.
I think I'm gonna be pretty mad when we try to enforce that, so.
Right, well, I don't wanna make it more difficult for people to actually, you know, to have to find materials or pay more money for a certain type of material either, I don't think
Right,
that's
and that's
fair,
why I
so.
brought it up, because I think the very common pickets are less than 5/8 of an inch thick, and,
I'm looking at Lowe's, it's 0.35 is the thickness, is what it says.
0.35 of an inch.
It says actual picket thickness, inch is 0.35.
What is that? 0.35 is a third, which is not 5/8. 5/8 is closer to a quarter, 3/4. Well, either way, I know it's.
And that panel's almost $70.
There used to be one.
So that would be very, you go 5/8 and it's almost
So, yeah, so we'll remove that language.
Okay,
And that stated in Lowe's, that was a severe weather fence.
because that's the pressure treatment. They have a not so severe weather, if you wanna call it that, but it's got more pressure treated, product in there. So in other words, it's supposed to last longer, you know. And I guess the only other thing I thought to put in here is something about it, you know, it has to be maintained, but I don't know if that isn't already in our code. I don't know if we have to mention that specifically. Maybe it is a good idea to mention it specifically, that it has to continue to be, you know, maintained, because gosh knows we've seen so many fences, and after 2 years, particularly some of the panels from Lowe's, if they don't maintain them, they look like crap really soon, and it does look run down. But that may, and I guess Terry, that's kind of for you to, I guess, kind of figure out. We have that in, you know, your property has to be maintained
Right.
in general. So I don't know if we wanna specifically mention it, maybe it's a good idea to specifically mention it in the code, so that we can say, hey, specifically we mentioned, you know, fences need to continue to be maintained properly, and by the way, so does your whole property, you know.
Not cutting grass.
Well,
It's,
I gotta tell you, let me tell you, just since you mentioned that, the lady that just came by here looking for the fence, the one that I was telling you that has the fence out front, not on her street, absolutely full of, the chain link fence is already to there, grass is completely overgrown, and every kid toy that I've ever seen in my life is out front there. It's a wreck. And, you know, I don't know how you, I mean,
But,
you know.
but what do? The people the guy that bought the house next to us, I was so excited, cause that man that used to own it cut his grass once a year. And when I went over there and met him, he goes, oh, don't worry, I got a landscape company. Thank you, Jesus. Do you know he has cut that yard twice all season? Twice, and he owns a landscape company, so there's really nothing you can do. I mean, I don't know what you do.
I think for fences, it makes sense to add it in. I prefer it when, versus having just it somewhere else in the code. If I'm looking at our fence regulations to see what I have to do, if I can see it all here and not have to go look through different parts of the code, I think
I
it's
see what
better
you mean.
it's better for staff, and it's better for the public as well. So.
Yeah, because that way when we see these panels that fall down, or the panels that are sagging to the point that the
Mhm.
pickets are falling off, and, or even if it's a concrete one, the concrete does crack and goes like that, you know, that will give us some kind of teeth so that we can. so-
That's what I was gonna say. It gives us more teeth to be able to work with people. And again, I mean, y'all know from working with David that he's not gonna go out there and write a ticket first. He's gonna go and talk to the homeowner, find out what's going on, let them know what the regulations are, and work with them to get it where it needs to be. So.
Should we use, I mean, cause you got on here, it can't be constructed of exposed concrete, block tires, should we not put pallets on there?
That's it.
Because I've noticed since that lady, I guess lady could be, I don't know who it is at that fence up, but since that pallet fence went up, you know, just you're riding around going places, and there's a pallet fence. So evidently it's starting to be a thing.
There's, on this one, that's wooden. Scrap materials, 2.3.
I think scrap materials would identify pallets as scrap material. A definition of scrap material would identify pallets as scrap material, no?
No, right here, it says excluding wooden pallets.
I thought it says excluding them?
2.1.
But if you would like to include,
But that's one from Savannah.
Oh, that one,
That's
okay,
one.
yeah.
right, if you would like to in G, on our, what we're proposing, include pallets, I can add that in.
Yeah, I would like that.
They now have an iron fence. Remember, you're right, they did use pallet fence.
Oh, yeah.
It was supposed to be temporary, but it is,
Well,
I guess it was temporary,
it was
because now
a-
they got an wrought iron, or
And this is probably new to you, but First Baptist Church has a big pumpkin patch out from that children's building.
Mhm.
And it's country decorative, so they put pallets up there.
I had heard about that. Now, I would say for something that's that's truly a temporary, we're not gonna,
Festival kind of.
right, I mean,
Seasonal.
you know, there are certain things, but again, we wanna make sure it's temporary,
Right.
so.
yeah, it wasn't really very sturdy. Like it's,
It's quite decorative.
you weren't gonna hold back the horses, I mean, or the chickens like the other ladies trying to.
I don't know what she's trying to hold back, bless her heart.
So what I have for what y'all would wanna see before it goes, for what I would take forward to the public hearing on the 14th would be, provide either better language or an example for, FB, I should probably change those to 1 through, so look at that now. For the CMU, to remove that is at least 5/8 inch thick, to include wooden pallets under G, and to add language about maintaining the fence.
Okay.
Does that capture everything that y'all?
This time. You guys have anything else that you're thinking about? I'm not crazy about fences in the front yard at all. That's just my opinion. I don't think they should be allowed past that unless there's some, I think we did one because a woman had a autistic child or something that she had to keep that child corralled. But that's just me. I don't like having I don't think fences in the front yard are necessary. And I don't see where it helps, but I've already mentioned that. I just don't like it.
And I guess this would also apply not just residential, but commercial, because I think of
Mhm.
the fence that runs Fort Howard to the Lost Plantation. They keep that up really good, that split rail fence.
Mhm.
Is that concrete though?
I think it might be that Hardy Plank stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hardy board, yeah.
I think
Oh,
maybe-
not hardy, maybe it's the vinyl, that hard,
It might be the vinyl.
composite
but,
vinyl. Yeah, the composite stuff is basically the plastic fence as opposed to the vinyl fence, but I mean, it's kind of the same stuff. Composite is what you.
I mean, I'm just thinking of certain situations how to apply like that. I know over at First Baptist, but we got a permit for that, because I was involved in properties on that. We had a play field, and kids would run out in front, out the road and catch balls. So we had a split rail fence put up there, but that was along the property line, wasn't it, Jim?
I don't remember, I mean, I wasn't part of
You
that.
know what fence I'm
Yeah, I know
talking
which fence you're talking about, which, yeah, that was a good idea. But I wasn't part of that.
But commercial has more leniency than this.
There's one set of fence standards in the code, so. So I am looking for a vote from y'all on this, so I can take that forward to council.
With your comments? So you're looking for a motion with the comments that you mentioned?
Yes.
All right, so I'll call for a motion unless there's anything else we have to add? Or no
I make the
discussion?
motion that we accept with the, changes that Terry made.
Okay, motion on the table for that.
A second.
And also second, and all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, and last order of business is always, unless you have something else, Terry, I don't wanna jump the gun for closing us down. Wally, we're good? Everybody good? All right, so I'll call for a motion for adjournment.
A motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Don't leave me hanging.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You're like.
My brain,
That's what straight at you.
Lolly.
Print out with the update.
Okay.
My grandkids said, thank you for those red, white, and blue